Lagos Talks 91.3 and Corporate Shepherds presents the Man of the Hour. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Idy Enang. This is Navigate with Idy Enang.
This is Navigate with Idy, brought to you by Corporate Shepherds.
Welcome, my dear friends, to Navigate with Idy this 2022. Friends, it's been God all the way. We thank Him for the gift of life. I am particularly grateful to be alive, and I'm also saying that on your behalf and on behalf of your loved ones. God has been faithful to keep us. 2021 came through. It's gone. We've started the journey, 2022. And I hope and I pray that by the time the year is rolling over, you and I will have very tangible testimonies to share about God's faithfulness and goodness in our lives. It's been an awesome pleasure and privilege to be able to share with you and also to learn from you, distinguished listeners. Thank you so much for your support all through the year. Thank you for the comments. Thank you for even sitting at the toughest of times to want to listen and also share your thoughts with me offline. You know, I've learned a lot. This program, Navigate with Idy, has helped me in more ways than one. And I'm grateful to God for the opportunity to be able to share and also to have a distinguished listenership like yourselves who can always come back to give feedback that would help enhance the quality and the work we're doing. But more importantly, it's the impact it's making to our individual and collective lives. Today's, I say, once again, a very big thank you. We cannot rest on our oars. We are looking for that place and that destination where you and I will call there. Every one of us will be looking for a there. That's the place we want to get to. That's the place ultimately in our hearts and our minds that we want to be able to structure ourselves to say, yes, I made it. You will sit back and say, I am a successful man. I am a successful woman. What exactly defines or has defined your thrust and knowledge of success? Well, friends, this is going to be a very interesting year. And what we've elected to do will follow the same sequence and pattern, where you can almost be sure that you may see this as a business school on radio. We had the business education series in December, where we looked at the code of business ethics, and we went through the entire gamut of it. And at some point, we also touched on leadership. For this piece, it's important that I let you understand that this business education series is poised to help several categories of people. One of such would be those we classify as our MSMEs or business owners. So you are a micro, small, medium enterprise owner. We are in that age and time where people are running businesses. People want to aspire to own businesses. So as a first category, this will ultimately be a point of contact and learning for the MSMEs. The second category of people I believe that this series will be very critical and useful for are employees, those that are in employment, who work for business concerns, who may not of necessity have the privilege of going for training. Listen, the training budgets are always slashed. You can take it upon yourself that you can easily have the opportunity every Tuesday and Thursday to listen to Navigate with Idy, to get some nuggets on how you would necessarily get to improve yourself, get to develop yourself, and by extension, understand how you can add value and be more productive within the context of the business you work for or represent. A third category will be the likes of the aspiring business owners. Every day, each day, someone is saying to himself or herself, I am tired of this 9 to 5. I want to run my own thing. People tend to say, I want to run my own thing. I want to do this. I want to do that. Some others may even be employees, but they're also saying to themselves, I need some more other streams of income. So the multiple streams of income become more or less a desire. And so they do not even know what they need to do and how much time they have to be able to execute their agenda. And so it is within this frame, I want you to join me in the next couple of episodes, and indeed this quarter, as we will take on the business education series. I trust God to be able to grant me utterance and to be able to give me the spirit, to be able to share practical learnings. And from my experience, from books that I've read, I'll be able to come out to you and say, this is what I read 10, 15, 20 years ago. It blessed me. It helped me in this particular space. It is helping me in my space now, because I just found out that very many of us who have gone through the process do not necessarily sit back and take people through to understand the vagaries of the process. But what we try to showcase is the progress we have made, but we do not tell them the whys and the wherefores and the pitfalls. So, navigate with ID on Lagos Talks 91.3 FM. That would give you the opportunity for us to share and learn. And at the end, friends, we will take on feedback, and I'll implore you, please, utilize the platforms. My social media handles, very simple, at Idy Enang. That's on Instagram, Facebook, and on LinkedIn. You can also connect. And more importantly, if you want to send an email, make it to contact@navigatewithid.com. As the year continues to roll in and roll through, we'll have sessions where you and I would have the opportunity of having very close conversations, or like we would have lunch and learn. That will now be an opportunity to home in and take on a big ship approach, but with a small lifeboat concept. So it is on this basis, having set the tone and the direction we'll be taking for the year, permit me to start the year on the note with a topic that I believe will provide some measure of segue and also throw some form of enlightenment to many. It's a topic that many people tend to talk about. We look at companies, we look at ourselves, but we wonder how what is done and how things tend to emanate. Things don't just fall from the sky. It's because there's always that space of planning. And so we'll be kicking off Navigate with ID this year. I'll be starting with the topic strategic planning. And as much as possible, because of the audience, and I want to tell you the audience is quite vast, from the very learned A, B, white collar executive, to my friends that are out there, the Uber drivers, the Bolt drivers. I mean, it's just amazing that a lot of them tend to key in and then send me messages through. I want to make this so easy such that there's a clear balance. And also the man in the middle or the lady in the middle who is also making her own business happen in the course of the day or whilst working for someone. And that's one space that I'll hopefully try to make this as simplistic as possible, but then not throwing away the rudiments of what this topic will bring to us. After this, we'll move into another series talking about strategic partnership. And I want you to see the essence of strategic partnership. I want you to then see why it's important to do some benchmarking. It's a business education series. Then you will now begin to understand why and what you need to do to make your business, including yourself, stand out from the crowd. So strategic planning, to anyone, you can call it SP. So for simplicity's sake, I could say SP. You understand that I'm talking about strategic planning. It provides a framework of practice to draw on, and it encourages strategic thinking. Please underline. Strategic planning provides a framework. It's almost like an architect. When you want to build a house, and you need, to start from somewhere. You need someone to articulate what that future would look like, but in the form of drawing. So you get an architect. The architect puts together a couple of lines, which you see as lines, but actually it's a framework. And that's exactly what strategic planning does. To draw on, and what it does, it encourages strategic thinking rather than imposing a sequence of steps to follow. So one of the things that people do not do, and is very much in short supply, is thinking, not to talk of strategic thinking. So if you are going to get yourself into the space where you want to be notable, you want your business to be notable, you want to start off on a note where people can look at you and say, there's something about this man, there's something about that business, there's something about that organization, there's something about this whole entity. You must start from building that framework. You must have an end in mind. You must also think. A lot of people do not think, not to talk about strategic thinking. It is not easy. It's not cheap stakes. You can't wake up today and say, I want to become the next president. You can, by the way. You have the right, you have the desire, but it must go through a process of thinking. And that in itself will energize some form of planning. You cannot just wake up today and say to yourself that you want to build an empire or a business conglomerate. It's not just going to happen simply because you are working with a business aficionado, or you're working with the richest man in the world. That doesn't make it happen. You need to build a framework and also go through the process of thinking. So what, in essence, would strategic planning do? Strategic planning helps you to manage the future. Friends, if you don't manage the future will manage you. If at the age of 40, 50, 60, you are still being looked upon, looked at as unserious, then it tells you that whatever you are doing and where you are now, you just need to take a game of two halves. What do I mean? If you are 40 years of age, the game of two halves for me, take your first half, which is the first 20. Whatever you're done in the first 20 will now reflect in the second half, which is the second 20. So if, for example, you are 40, and at 40, you're saying to yourself, the last 2 decades, what exactly have you accomplished? It's a function of how you started off your first 2 decades, which was your first half. Ditto if you are 50 or if you are 60. That's why you look at some people at the age of 50 or 40, they're struggling because they never found a space to even plan and say to themselves, this is what and where I am going. This is what I want of my life. And that's what strategic planning does. Same vein for a business. So strategic planning helps you manage the future. It doesn't help you make the future. What it does, it helps you manage the future, because if you don't manage the future will manage you. And I don't want to be very disrespectful, and I do not want to be demeaning. But I'll tell you this, it truly hurts me to the bone whenever I go into an estate and that estate would have some security, and then the estate security, or the gatemen, as we call them, depending on, what part of town you stay. When I see an elderly man, work as a gateman, my heart bleeds. What I always ask myself is, this man would necessarily not be hired as a security operative because, number one, is aging or aged. Sometimes you find some of them are in their late 60s and almost approaching 70. Some of them have to undercut their ages just because they just need to put food on the table at that age. So you're going to ask yourself, what exactly happened to this man? How did he get to this space? And why is he here? The second question that I always ask myself is, where are his children? Okay, let us even assume that his children are not responsible. Where are those that he would have supported or helped, mentored, or done some good to? Can they, of necessity, be happy to see this man at the age of 70 opening the gates? He would even struggle carrying the metal gate. And then you ask yourself, what happened in 7 decades of his life? How did he live it? That in itself tells you that there was nothing called strategic planning. Now, you can also argue that people say, no, not everybody, fingers are not equal. I know. You want to tell me about fingers? I can see mine. You want to tell me about fingers? I can tell you that my father, and I always say this, I was reminded during the Christmas break, someone said to me, just said some very profound things about my family and said, I remember Uncle Idy, he said this on radio. I said, oh, this radio will not kill me. I've probably let out my life, on radio and on air, and I hope you guys appreciate it. It's not for any reason, but just to bring out the facts as they were. My grandfather had 7 wives. My father is the first son of the first wife. And I always say to people, I'm his first son. So if within the African or Nigerian culture and context, you can understand that definitely there will be several, uncles, aunties, etc. You can call it in another sense to say their children, who will be my cousins, would come into in different phases. But you now begin to ask yourself, why did my father choose to leave home at the age of 20 or 18 rather? First of all, went to Enugu and then came to Lagos for greener pastures. He got to Lagos at the age of 20 and was working and started looking for a job. Now, from 20, he worked and worked decades upon decades, and I appeared after the first decade. What I'm saying in essence is, if you do not plan, and this is where strategic planning helps, you will not be able to manage that future if you don't manage the future. The future will manage you. So when I see a man old enough to be my father sitting as a gate man, I ask myself, did this man manage his future? Did he plan? What did he do differently? Or what did he not do? What lessons can I learn from this? And that in itself makes me pop up. But here we're talking about businesses, but we cannot divulge, we cannot, step away just talking about business without talking about individuals, because people actually run businesses. People make businesses come alive. So what then is strategic planning? Strategic planning actually goes to the heart of what an organization does, the why and how it does it, and where it is going. As I go on this series, I'll be parallel pathing the business side and also the personal side to avoid me having to hold a separate episode, which will be strategic planning, focusing on the individual, you as a person. Because many of us do not even understand that even our careers, we need to be strategic about it. I was very strategic about the switch I made in my career. I started my career as a young management trainee, marketing. But at that point, I was going to be in marketing as a brand manager. I ultimately said to myself, do I want to be a marketing person or specialist for life? It took me one major thought to change all of that. I said, if I continue on the track as a marketer, what is the highest I would rank? It will be marketing director. It will be chief marketing officer. Is that the ceiling? Absolutely. But what may change may be the scope. So I actually set a goal to myself or for myself saying, one of the goals by so year, I want to be one of the top senior marketing talents in Africa. And I set that as a personal goal. And what that did for me was to actually shape a destination and to know that at some point on the continent of Africa, when any top job in marketing is being advertised, I should be contacted. That will tell me that I'm ripe or ready to take on that role. And did it happen? Yes, it did, friends. And that's exactly what happens in an organization. So if you are not sitting and looking at your career and saying to yourself, what is this destination? Where do I want to hit? Where do I want to get to? In my own case, I knew that getting to the peak of what I would call my career in marketing was just going to be a stepping stone because I wanted to be a general manager. Being a general manager meant that I ultimately have to run a business. And so at some point, I had to walk away from the marketing space and I took on other assignments. I became a strategic planning manager, a business development manager, and at the same time, a chief of staff. Those three roles that I ran for president in Coca-Cola presented the opportunity and the platform for me to prepare myself to ultimately become a general manager or managing director. That in itself was a strategic plan. And so in conversations with our group president then, Alex Cummins, who hopefully might be the next president of Liberia. He was my boss at Coca-Cola. I'll sit down with Alex and I'll say, Alex, I want to go to what we used to call a Kobo. That is a company-owned bottler operation. Coca-Cola used to have bottler operations then. But I was clear in my head that I wanted to be a general manager. And so in speaking to the seniors who were going to make the decision about my career, I had already created that framework and plotted it. And so when we are having conversations, I was consistent. That's why any organization that is in business, you find those that stay long have strategic planning is really at the heart of what they do. The why they do it, how they do it, and where they are going. Do you have a strategic plan about your life, about your career, about your family, about your entire being? If you don't, you are just walking in a park aimlessly. That's the message I'm giving you. 2022 and beyond is not sentiments. It's not about, oh, my father is going to be the governor. That's wishful thinking. Because God forbid, your father does not have, without the gift of life, your father may not be able to execute anything. So would be your mentor. So be whoever you are dependent upon. Only God can guarantee you the longevity and that eternal space. So, but many people tend to put their trust in the arms of flesh and it fails them because you think that strategic planning is that I am aligned with this Egbon. I know this man. Oh, 2023 is coming. I have to line up behind this man. You forget that that same man you're lining up behind, just one snuff out of the breath is gone and everything crushes. So what do you have? In like manner, many of you are running businesses today. You've come through 2021. Now, this is 2022. You're about to start. Do you have a strategic plan? You're going to wonder why I'm going on this route. Because without strategic planning, you cannot understand how you are going to execute. And it is always about the how. When you sort out the how, the most important factor will be the who, which is around the people. When we come back, as we step into the second half, I'm going to unveil 5 key questions that strategic planning helps or puts on the pathway for you and I to be able to answer. Don't go away, friends. It's Navigate with Idy. Once again, it's a Happy New Year to you. If you're just joining, I'll meet you on the other side. God bless.
This is Navigate with Idy, brought to you by Corporate Shepherds.
Welcome back, my dear friends, from the short break. I hope you had a great time so far. If you're just joining us, I bid you welcome. It's Navigate with Idy 2022 New Year edition. And what a way to say Happy New Year, and what a way to say thank you. What a way to also glorify God for keeping us alive. I'm particularly grateful, friends, for the gift of life. And I'm thankful, that I'm alive, you are alive, and we are able to share and learn and make the best of ourselves. So for those that are just joining, we've been looking at the subject of strategic planning. And for your benefit, I'm just going to do a quick summary. We talked about this series particularly is poised to drive business owners, SMEs, employees, aspiring business owners to be able to walk through the maze. And that's why we have the business education series on Lagos Talks and 3 to 4 p.m. So always tune in. And with this subject of strategic planning, I started speaking to the fact that it provides a framework of practice that folks can draw on, and it encourages strategic thinking. If you pause there and shift the gears with me, one of the things I said was that strategic planning helps you manage the future. And I went through several examples. And if you don't manage the future will manage you. And that in itself is reality. If you don't embrace the reality and deal with it, you will also become some point of history, or people are going to say, remember that man, and you will be the one that will be the subject of the formula or the subject of the discussion. Not sure you want to be a subject of the discussion. So what then is strategic planning? Strategic planning, I said, goes to the heart of what an organization does. It also goes to the heart of what an individual does, why and how the organization does it, and where it is going. So just at the point we took the break, I did say that there were 5 questions that were very critical, and that strategic planning speaks to 5 key questions. Now, I want to say this again, that as we look at strategic planning, I want you to wear the business lens as an SME or an employee or an aspiring business owner, but knowing fully well that you also are an individual. So strategic planning does appeal to all and sundry, especially individuals. So this can be applied to your personal life equally. And that's why I talked about the career. And that's why I talked about your life. So these questions will also apply to you if you synthesize it and have a think about. Now, you may wonder, what are these 5 questions? They're very simple. Way back my days at Coca-Cola, and that's why, many times when, one gets a chance of, sharing the breadth of experience that one has, when you walk through a certain institution or institutions, the values that you will take are actually values that you will exude and you run through even long after you may have left the organization. We used to have, business planning sessions at Coca-Cola. And of course, all the companies I work for, whether it's Guinness, whether it's L'Oreal, Samsung, etc. But Coca-Cola was kind of unique and different, because business planning, we start probably about second quarter, and you'll be shocked that the entire organization will be galvanized for almost 6-7 months with all the energy. But there is always something that kicks it off. It's called the CRA. What is the CRA? Current Reality Assessment. The current reality assessment. The average cook, executive, or marketing person, the first conversation you will always have is about what's the current reality? Where are you now? So the big question starts. The first question is, where are you now in your business? Where is your business now? Where are you now in your career? Where are you now in your life journey? Where are you now in terms of your finances, your financial aspirations? You can apply this to different facets in your relationship, in what you're doing. So where are you now? It's a critical question. And that's what strategic planning begins to help you shape, create a framework to think. Because when you don't think, you can't act. Disciplined thoughts bring about disciplined actions. But many times people take it for granted. That's why a lot of businesses are failing. Albeit you wonder why we don't have star companies, star organizations, star businesses that are being born by Nigerians and indeed Africans. We just have a bit of splinter here. We have very few stars who stand out in the horizon, whereas the entire firmament should be lit with stars. It's because very many people don't even want to accept and understand where they are now. We want to live a false life. You're saying to yourself, I'm a billionaire, when you know you don't even have a near. Not to talk of being a billionaire. You want to fake it to make it. So where are you now? It's a real reality check, current reality. Honesty, like you used to have at the back of buses those days, honesty is the best policy. So if you deceive yourself as an organization, which a lot of companies do, even now, organizations do it. They sell falsehood rather than top management saying to themselves, guys, let's look at ourselves. The enemy is in the mirror. Who are you? Who do you see in the mirror? You're seeing yourself. The top executives will be deceiving themselves in the boardroom. And trust me, there's a lot of deceit. The man or woman who decides to be very sane to speak up will be labeled and he will be seen. He will not be invited to the pre-meeting before the meeting. The first question, where are you now? In your organization, in your business. The second question strategic planning speaks to is, how did you get there? How did you get to this spot where you are? So it means that you need to do some digging. Very many of us do not even understand what exactly got me to this space. It's very easy to blame someone, but you will never look at the man in the mirror. How did I get here? How did my business get here? Yes, there are chances. Yes, there are choices. Yes, we forget there are consequences. The choices you made or did not make will come as consequences, whether good, bad, or ugly. There is always a consequence. So how did you get there? I give the analogy of how my heart bleeds when I see a late 60s man working as a gate man, or in the 70s, and Baba struggling to open the gate for you to drive through. And you look at it and say, oh man, this man is in the twilight of his years. What did he do with his youthful days? Even if this man did not do anything, he must have trained some children. Where are his children? He couldn't be this irresponsible. So let's even assume that he doesn't have children. Where are those that he trained, or the children in the neighborhood he used to serve, or give them food, or take them to school, or walk them across? Somebody will render a helping hand. Not at 70. This man should not be a gate man. Somebody should be able to stand up. That's reality. If you do not manage the future will manage you. That's exactly why businesses are crumbling. Listen, I run a very small entity, and I can tell you It's not been rosy. The ease of doing business. Today, in Nigeria, they say, oh, you can set up a company in 7 days. But how come you can set up a company in Rwanda today and have a virtual office? It just tells you, how did Rwanda get there? And how did Nigeria get to where we are? How come you have two different schools that are teaching the same subject, but the students come out with diverse experiences? How come? If the foundation be destroyed, what can the righteous do? The third question that strategic planning speaks to: what business are you in? You see, this question of what business are you in is very critical, because many of us are into this and that. They say, what business are you in? I said, we are hustlers. You rarely will see a young person or a business person tell you, this is the business I am in. So he or she cannot articulate it because they are all over the place. They are general contractors, extraordinary. They sell crayfish here, you go jump enter, you buy. You run over here, they are selling bathroom slippers. Oh boy, hustle. Hustling can only be temporal. There are too many hustlers on the street. They are just like, someone taking a bus or an Uber. You are going to drop off at the next stop. What you don't know with hustling is what that stop is. But a man that has his trip well planned can tell you specifically that he's going to Ikeja. He has a destination. Why? Because he knows the business he's in and what he's taking him to. In like manner, as an employee, many of you don't know what business your company is in. They say, come, you work for so and so company. What business are you in? He said, I don't know. May I just not say, I dey go work 9 o'clock, we'll close 5. They'll give me work too and I come out. Tell me how you can ever be successful. What business are you in? You are an employee. You earn a salary from that business. You are totally disconnected from that business. You don't have an emotional investment in it. You cannot reap where you have not put in some measure of work. However, I know that within the biblical context, there are areas it is written that you can actually reap where you have not sown. Yes, you enter into some other person's harvest. Maybe some of us are playing in that space and saying, me, I'm just waiting to inherit. So your father or mother would have done all the work and you are praying that something should happen. Baba Onikuni, this man no go die. And they say the father, I've actually heard of cases where, the children are practically just saying, what's this man or woman still waiting for? Let them move, Jerry. What they are waiting for is just for them to move and then to move the things. They think that they are going to sell the properties or the things and have their inheritance. So what business are you in? Can you clearly articulate the business you are in? If you can't, then you need strategic planning. That's what is going to help you shape. Number 4 question that it speaks to: where do you want to be in the future? You see, that future we talked about is now. Here we are. We've kicked off the year 2022. Now you are a business owner. 2021. Have you sat back to say, okay, how was 2021? What lessons did I learn first quarter of 2021? How is my first half? You can now frame your future within the context of what you want. So many times we look at future as long-term. No. Future could be next week, subject to your own type of business. It could change overnight. It means you need to keep abreast of the things that are happening. You need to be on top of your game. The same thing with your career. The same thing with those of you that are in some, maybe call it in the tech business, in some business that requires, whether it's financial services, and if you can't be dealing in Forex, there are some volatile businesses and volatile entities. You just can't just rest on your oars. So where do you want to be in the future? How do you see this small business of yours? Your turnover in 2021 was 5 million. So 5 million in 4 quarters means you did an average of 1.25 million a quarter on an average. So what are you looking for? Your first half should be 2.5 million. What is the outlook? Where do you want to be by this first half of 2022? That's another way to say, where do you want to be in the future? I want to double my business. Once you say, I want to double my business, or I want to grow my business, or I want to start a business, you then need to plan. You see, then you then get into the cycle of us answering the question, so where are you now? How did you get here? Or how did you get there? What is the nature of what you desire? What is the opportunity you see? How do you want to capitalize or take advantage or leverage that opportunity? The last question that's question 5. How are you going to get there? Strategic planning brings a whole gamut of very serious, thought-provoking, sincere items to your face. As an organization, I know what it takes. When we start the year like this, when I had the privilege of serving as a CEO, now our parent company, whether in Korea when I worked for Samsung, or Atlanta when I worked for Coke, or Guinness in GBW in London, or L'Oreal in Paris, typically they would have called up the executives. We would have all met and had series of meetings. And so it is not what we are going to implement or start implementing on the 4th of January that we'll start thinking. All of this would have buttoned down by the last quarter of last year. Specifically, there would have still been executive business planning sessions with the top management. So we fly back into a different entity. So whether I was managing Nigeria or West Africa, I'll come back and meet my own leadership team and say, guys, even whilst we are there, whatever location, you're sending messages to say, guys, our numbers have changed. We are asked to do a top line growth. Top line growth must be double digits, so 10%. And then the P&L must have some good leverage. And they're expecting P&L should not be less than 8-10%. And what that tells you, that you must manage your costs. So instantly people are working and beginning to say to themselves, what do we need to take out and how do we need to do to grow the business? So if I take that into a specific space, you are a young business owner. Your business is just under 3 years old. Last year, 2021, we're just coming out of the COVID. 2020 was a bad year for some, was a great year for others. It's a tale of different cities. Everybody had his own music to face. Some survived, some didn't make it, and some overmade it. What the profits they made in 2020, they never made before. That's life. And in 2021, it was a time to just, let's get out of the maze. But 2022 is about, you've learned the lesson in 2020, you've walked through 2021, and 2022 is consolidation. It's almost like fast forward. It's time to act. If anybody continues to use the COVID 2020 as an excuse in 2022, that person is not serious, business-wise, because every business has been impacted. Every individual has been impacted. So ask yourself, am I going to embrace the reality I find myself? Yes. Where are you now? And that's what strategic planning will help you do. Strategic planning will help you by providing a framework for understanding, number one, understanding your position in the marketplace. See, that is the final frontier, not just the place that we are going to face, all kinds of devils. But I tell you, just close your eyes and walk with me to any big market, whether it's Balogun, whether it's Oba Market in Benin, whether it's Ariara in Aba. Just close your eyes and with your mind's eye, just get into that space. What do you see? Chaos. You just find people, you find a people, sea of people. And yet there's order in that chaos. You find women, you find merchandise, you find segmentation. The woman that is selling fish, you would not find her in the place they are selling shoes. There is a method to the madness. And so when you do not sit back and answer the question, how did I get here? It's because you did not accept the reality of the moment. You're still living in some illusion. Wake up, friends. Get your business out of that illusion. You need some form of awakening. Same thing with your career. If you are in a career now or a job that does not allow you see beyond the now, then you need to dream differently. You need to go back to God and say, teach me to number my days so I can apply my heart to wisdom. It also means that you do not even have a good support system or a support structure. There are many of us that think that we can do it alone. We don't want to have coaches. A friend of mine, a very close friend of mine, introduced me to a coachee just over the Christmas. I met this amazing individual, very, very resourceful person. So she's signed up now as for an executive coaching course and time with me. And one of the things she was surprised was in our first meeting. After about 30 minutes, I said, "This is who I think you are," and she just looked at me and said, "How did you know?" And I said, "Well, it's a function of grace. A lot of it has to do with grace, but it also has to do with experience and the things that you cannot take away from me, because this is my own space." Part of the advantages of strategic planning is that, number one, it will help you understand your position in the marketplace. I know what I can do and I know what I cannot. Number two, strategic planning helps to provide a sense of direction, purpose, and urgency. If you are not in a frame, if you are not framed your business right now by going through the gamut, because I'm still going to go into details of, this, what you need, almost like a checklist I'll share with you. Like I said, I'm going to make this as simplistic as possible because I have varied audience that listen to me, from my friends in the Uber drivers up to the executives in the office and in between. So I need to make sure that this is not so top heavy, but it also transcends across the spectrum. So when I say what is an advantage of strategic planning, number one, it makes you understand your position in the marketplace. So if you are an Uber driver, are you going to drive one vehicle for someone forever? But when you are able to understand, and that's why I say to most of the Bolt drivers or Uber drivers that I engage with, I said, your car is your office. This car, even if it doesn't belong to you, take this as what you can use to transform your environment and your community. Why? You need to think. And in thinking, you kick in with a plan. That strategic plan helps you move forward with a sense of direction, purpose, and urgency. So you begin to see yourself as a fleet manager, not as a driver. When your passengers or customers come in, unlike some of them these days that sell from crayfish to perfumes and all that, I know they are trying to do multiple streams of income. But hey, don't dilute certain things without even having an understanding. Not in the days now the way we are. trust is very, very much, it's not something you pick up on the streets. So if you are in a space where you are doing your business, no matter how small, and you are planning, it allows you focus on key issues and elements that will drive productivity. Once there is productivity, growth has come. It is a natural thing. Once you are productive, you will see growth. That is why if you are working in an organization, now, how do you measure your productivity? How do you know you are making progress? Many of us look at promotion. Many of us also look at accolades. Oh, they have given me a salary increase. That's the way you measure productivity. But you never come back to yourself to say, have I grown an inch in terms of knowledge? What further knowledge do I have? Have you ever looked at a bathtub where you fill a bathtub with water and then you put in the seal and the water does not go out? Leave that water for 7 days. On the 7th day, come in and see if that water is exactly the water you left. You would have had algae. You will have all manner of things in it because it's not flowing. That's the same way many people are stale today. They've not increased in knowledge. They've not improved themselves. They've not done anything to the brand that they represent. They are just sitting ducks and all they want is just collect salary and go. The same thing happens to some business and we wonder why some businesses are dying. The businesses are dying because nothing is being done via strategic planning. Strategic planning helps you improve motivation. It helps you drive communication at all levels. That's where you open the tap. People are free flowing. And what do you get at the end? Strategic planning provides a framework for delivering results, either to a business, to an individual, to an organization. The end product is results. I say to people that I mentor and I coach, no one ever rewards efforts. I said that to my team in Cadbury and to my team at L'Oreal. Nobody ever rewards effort, but results. Take it upon yourself, friends, that as we go through this business education series, that the ultimate drive is productivity and results. I'll be back on Thursday by God's grace, and we'll continue as we take on strategic planning. We'll do a bit of recap, hopefully going to step into a terrain of some form of checklist or what you need to do as a middle, or what do you call as a micro, small or medium enterprise owner, or even as an employee or an aspiring business owner, as we look at strategic planning to help you build your business. Thank you so much for listening. Like I said, if you have questions, friends, feedback will be greatly appreciated. Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn, it's at Idy Enang, still Idy Enang, or send a mail to contact@navigatewithid.com. Thank you so much. Happy New Year once again. By God's grace, Thursday will be another time for us to share. Goodbye.
And that was Navigate with Idy, brought to you by Corporate Shepherds.